All right, let's talk about one of the most beautiful, but also one of the most notoriously tricky places to photograph on the entire planet. Chefchaouen, Morocco's incredible blue pearl. Today, we are cracking the code on how to get those perfect photos.
So, why is it so hard? You've seen the pictures, right? You get there, you're excited, you snap away, and then you look at your camera and, they just don't have that magic. If that's ever happened to you, listen up. It's not your fault. It's the city. And there's a very specific reason for it, and we are going to show you exactly how to beat it.
Okay, look at this. This is what we're talking about. On the left, you've got that frustrating snapshot. The blues are weird, you can't see the texture on the walls, and the skin tones look kind of alien. But on the right, that's the goal. Vibrant but real-looking blues, crisp whites, and, this is the big one, perfect natural skin tones. Getting from one to the other isn't about luck, it's about knowing how to handle that crazy blue light. So let's dive into the why. Seriously, this has nothing to do with you being a bad photographer. It all comes down to your camera sensor getting totally and completely overwhelmed by a really unusual environment. Here's the big secret. Think about it. Every single one of those blue walls is basically a giant blue reflector. So light comes down, hits the walls, and then bounces everywhere, just flooding your camera's sensor with a tidal wave of blue. The camera just doesn't know what to do with all that information, and it kind of freaks out. It's a totally predictable reaction, but you have to know it's happening. And that confusion leads to these classic problems that drive everyone crazy. You know that beautiful, rough texture of the painted walls? Poof! It just gets crushed into a flat blue mush. And if you're taking a picture of a person, their skin takes on this really bizarre bluish tint. And the worst part is, when you try to fix it by slapping on some generic travel filter, it usually just cranks up the saturation and makes everything look even more fake.
But don't worry, for every problem, there is a solution. And we're going to tackle the hardest part first, getting those perfect portraits and avoiding that weird blue skin thing.
We're just going to go ahead and call this the Smurf Effect. It's a fun name for a very real, very annoying problem. All that blue light bouncing around casts this unnatural color onto your subject's skin, and suddenly they look, well, a little bit like a Smurf. And trust me, once you see it, you can never unsee it. So how in the world do you fix it? You need a specialized tool. Professionals use presets that are built on actual color science. In this case, you need something that's designed to do one job perfectly. It intelligently finds the specific reds and oranges that make up human skin tones, puts a sort of protective bubble around them, and keeps them looking totally natural while still letting you make those background blues as rich and vibrant as you want. It's a game changer. But of course, it's not just about portraits, right? A pro photographer doesn't have one magic button they press for everything. No way. They have a whole toolkit with a specific tool ready for every single lighting situation you're going to run into in those winding blue alleys. Okay, first up is your workhorse, your bread and butter. It's the Chefchaouen Classic. Honestly, you can think of this as your default setting for like 80% of your daytime photos. It is perfectly calibrated to give you those bright, punchy blues and those super clean whites that just scream professional travel photo. It's the one you can rely on most of the time. But what about those magic hours, sunrise and sunset? Well, for that you need something totally different. The Medina Golden Hour tool is designed specifically for that gorgeous, warm, low light. It's going to boost the beautiful oranges and yellows in things like lamps or carpets, and especially in skin tones, while making sure the blue walls stay deep and rich instead of turning into some kind of muddy, purplish mess. And you know those super narrow, dark streets where it feels like there's almost no light? That's where the Blue Alley Shadow preset comes to the rescue. It is designed to go in there and aggressively lift those dark shadows, bringing back all the amazing detail and texture in the walls and the cobblestones, all without making the colors look faded or washed out. And finally, for anyone going for that specific, kind of trendy aesthetic, there's the soft pastel dream. This is that influencer style you see a lot. It drops the contrast way down, it creates these soft, creamy highlights, and it mutes the blues for a more ethereal, kind of dreamy look. It's a purely stylistic choice, but it gives your photos a completely different feel. Okay, so clicking on a preset is step one. That gets you in the ballpark. But the real magic, the thing that takes a photo from just good to, oh my gosh, that's perfect, that happens in the 60 seconds after you click that button. You have to remember this. This is the key mindset shift right here. A preset isn't supposed to be the final product. It's a professional head start. You are the artist. You are always the final editor, and you get the final say on how your photo looks and feels. And you really don't have to be some kind of technical wizard. These 3 sliders, which are in pretty much every photo app, are your new best friends. Is the photo a little too dark or too bright?
Just adjust the exposure. Does the light feel a little too blue or maybe a little too yellow? Tweak the temperature. Want it to have more punch or feel softer and more dreamy? Just play with the contrast. Mastering just these 3 controls will give you so much power.
But at the end of the day, the better the ingredients you start with, the better the final meal is going to be, right? Well, it's the same with photos. A fantastic edit always starts with a really good photo. So let's quickly cover a few tips for when you're out shooting that will make your editing life so much easier.
Here are the big ones. First, if your camera or your phone can do it, shoot in RAW. It just captures way more data, which gives you a ton of flexibility later on. Second, try to avoid that harsh midday sun, usually from around noon to 3 p.m. The light is just too strong and it washes out the blues. Third, always be looking for pops of contrast in color, like an orange clay pot against a deep blue wall. It just makes your photos so much more interesting. And finally, remember this, it is always better to make your photo a little too dark than a little too bright. You can almost always pull details out of shadows, but once a part of your photo is pure white, that information is gone forever.
And for those last few little tweaks, here's a quick cheat sheet. If you edit your photo and the skin looks a little too orange, just dive into your app's color mixer, find orange, and pull the saturation down just a tiny bit. Photo's still a bit too dark? Bump up the main exposure, or even better, just lift the shadow slider. And if your photo looks a little grainy because you were shooting in low light, just add a little touch of noise reduction. That'll clean it right up.
So there you have it. You are no longer at the mercy of that confusing blue light. You now have the knowledge, you've got the toolkit to take control and make the light work for you. So the only real question left is, now that you have the secrets of the blue pearl, what incredible story are your photos going to tell?